Primetime Poulton, keep it entertaining, you already knowin'. Outworking everybody and he don't ever quit. Talking about plenty comics like Graveyard Shift, Sea Dogs, Viking Wolf, U.S. Assassin. Doing just what he loves, this is his passion. Bring more value to your dollar, no I'm not frontin'. That's how just a writer became a moral compass. This is Primetime Poulton. This is Primetime Poulton. Let's go.
Yo, what's up, guys? Happy Monday. It's the Moral Compass, Mark Poulton. And with me today, I got the real Steve Dye and Aldous. What's up, guys?
Not much, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man.
Yeah,
no absolutely.
Problem. We're going to talk about your new project, Rocket Mission 2. But before we get into that, I want to remind the audience
about your projects, Mark.
Hey, we can talk both.
I want to extol the virtues of a guy that keeps shit. I about said both oars in the water, but that would have been. Wait a minute, hang on. No, I mean you've got so many great projects. You're juggling hand grenades and chainsaws and working with notable artists, putting out your own stuff, and I'm here to talk about that actually. Let's go ahead and talk about Loose Threads.
Yeah, I don't have oars. I have a motorboat, man.
There you go. Now you're talking my language.
Loose Threads in demand right now. What happens to your favorite comic book characters when their series are canceled? I wrote this after getting fired by DC Comics twice in the same week from the same book. Unbelievable story, but it inspired an even greater story about Queen Madeline, who is about to slay her arch nemesis, the Necro Dragon, and then everything around her goes blank. In the distance, she sees a door. She goes to it. She opens it. And inside, she finds all these colorful characters, comic book characters who have been canceled. She's been canceled as well. And she's not going to take her cancellation lying down. She gathers up some like-minded characters, and they break out into the real world to track down their creator, force him to finish their stories so they can fulfill their destinies. This book is highlighted by what could possibly be the final cover by the late, great George Perez. Interior artist Cesar Madaro met him at a Comic-Con in Spain a few years ago, approached him with the idea about doing this jam cover, and George graciously agreed to do it. He drew Queen Madeline inside the crystal ball. Cesar drew the rest of the cover, beautifully colored by Anthony George, colorist of Graveyard Shift. And this is a piece of history right now. As far as I know, it's the last cover by George Perez. So I'm honored to have it as part of the campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. You paused for a minute, so naturally, I'm going to interject.
Go for it.
You just know that some bastard is going to pull a Perez cover out of his file drawer. You just know that he is, and then they're going to put it on some god-awful comic book that is the very thing that we're all sick of. And let's hope defile's not the right. You couldn't possibly. Yeah, George Perez. My point is somebody didn't use something, because
there's got to be something out there.
Yeah, there's something in a drawer somewhere, but this is undoubtedly, indisputably. I'm trying to do the wrestling thing. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at it. This is a George Perez cover that isn't sitting around in a drawer. This is the last one that was done for an ongoing project that was actually published and released. And there's all these shows, and there's all this interaction and talk about back independent comics, and the hell with putting. I mean, Perez is a towering talent, obviously towering. But you just know they put one of those covers, some DC thing, sitting in a drawer. They put it on the back burner. They put it on the back burner.
I keep waiting for like Boom or IDW, one of those companies that George did like a little work for, to pull a rabbit out of their hat and say,
That's
we got the last.
Yeah, that could happen too. But in my book, this is the George Perez cover that you got to have. It's the last one that was done for an ongoing project in real time, and yeah, I just think it's a really good story, and you've got some great artists working on it, and what the hell, over? Let's buy some books, people.
Well, I think when you're talking too about what whether or not another Perez cover ever decorates another book, and undoubtedly, yes, of course it will happen. But this one, I mean, it's everything you want in a Perez cover. He's renowned for his pencils, obviously, but I mean, the facial expressions were always what I was drawn to him. Even going back, God, when he was just starting out working with Buckler, right, on Astonishing Tales. That's kind of what always stood out to me was his facial work. So when you look at the facial expressions on these characters, it's just it's killer. It's a stellar George piece, and it's the kind of thing that's like, man, that's the last one I want to buy for my collection that's new, And here thereafter, I'm going to delve back into the bin. So my hat's off to you, Mark. This is a huge coup. Congratulations.
Thank you. No, I feel honored to have a George Perez cover, whether it's the last one or not. Just the fact that I have a George Perez piece of artwork as part of my campaign is incredible. And not to be outdone, but Cesar Madaro, man, is a fantastic talent, and I can't believe more people don't know about him. Last I checked, he only had like 60 followers on Twitter. This guy is an artistic genius.
It's just nuts.
So maybe it's better that they don't know about him, so I can keep him to myself.
Yeah, that keeps it. Yeah,
but
we don't want to talk about affordable rates with artists because that's very inside baseball. But yeah, maybe that's not that bad. But yeah, it's beautiful work, and
yeah. I mean, he's incredible. We also have a black and white edition of the book available, so you can really appreciate his pencils. Man's a talent. Sooner or later, people are going to catch on to him, but the shading is incredible on the polar bear, and we're in demand. Book is actually finished, all the artwork, all the colors. We'll be going to print very soon. In fact, I received the funds from Indiegogo today, so book won't be in demand very long. One last thing I want to point out, The Art of Heather Martin. This is a hardcover book, a collection of my friend's artwork that she worked on while she was battling cancer on 6 different occasions. Very proud to publish this work for her. Definitely consider backing it. I actually got the physical proof of the book Friday, and I got to show it to her. So just I don't know, just showing her was a reward enough. But there's still time to back the book, so please consider.
Man, there's something to that. There's a couple of things there that. Yeah, doing Rocket, and I'm not jumping into the shill, but just I feel you when you say that it's just a privilege to show off this work.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a few guys in there that have in the first issue that were just kind of in the fan art section, but now they're doing bigger things, and I've got a couple of guys in there for this time that I'm really confident. So I like that, and then maybe later on let's talk about the book you're doing with your friend.
Sure. Yeah. Let's shout out.
That's a little bit of what we're trying to do with Rocket, and I don't want to jump into shilling for that. I'd rather go right on to you. But help a brother out. That's kind of that's what I get from Haunted Pizza, and I dig it.
Let's shout out the chat. We got Amanda B sharing the links. Thank you, Amanda. We got Muttman in the house. What's up, Mutt? Aldous, of course, with us. Nefarious in the house. Hail, nerds.
What's up, dude?
Nefarious says, I agree. Perez is known for his facials.
I think this is a PG-13 show, Nefarious.
Sean Davis. What's up, Sean? All right. Let's get into Rocket. What was so I'm a 90s fan. I grew up with Wizard Magazine. Wizard Magazine was like a must purchase, like especially the early days when they had the Image guys doing the covers, and they would incorporate the Wizard's hat and the cloak. I just loved it, and I just yearned for like the return of that. And when I saw Rocket #1, I was like, oh, this is it. Finally a comic magazine that's going to talk to the creators that I'm interested in reading about.
Thank you.
Did Wizard play any part in your wanting to make Rocket magazine?
No, it's a huge part. I mean, you
Yeah.
kind of just answered your own question, Mark, and I'm going to get out of the way and let Aldous take the lead on it. But it played a huge part in it. I'm somewhat a child of the 90s. That's when life, I mean, you want to talk about rock music or do you want to talk about comic books? I mean, shit was fun in the 90s. But yeah, Wizard I was also always a magazine guy. A lot of motorcycle magazines and so forth in my youth and today. And so yeah, when Wizard came out, I was like, holy shit, it's a glossy 4-color magazine about comic books. And sure, I mean, there's a lot of other influences. I'm going to let Aldous take over, but absolutely, it's inspired by Wizard. I don't know. I liked it, and I thought other people would like it if we did one now, concentrating on the artists, the writers, the independent comic book creators that were following along, because there's nothing for us back at the LCS.
Right. And I think when you're talking about like Wizard as an influence, it's definitely there. It's pretty much the primary pillar for what Rocket is and what became Rocket. But even beyond that, Wizard just wasn't enough, because as Steve and I talked more really early on years ago about doing something like this, it was also, heavy metal came into the discussion. And when you talk heavy metal, at least the era of heavy metal we remember, not the pale imitation that it has hence become as it decorates the rack. It was cutting edge art, cutting edge stories, experimental stuff that probably wouldn't exist in any other place. Heavy metal created an environment where a lot of that stuff could exist and could be explored and do something, because not all stories fit within the context of a floppy. Sometimes you only need 6 pages, or sometimes it's a reoccurring serial. It's only needs to have a couple pages to it. So we wanted to figure how to work that in. We wanted to, on this backbone of this, Wizard-like structure. And then Epic Illustrated came up, and all the great short stories in there where you'd get previews of stuff that was coming down the pipe, and that kind of the interviews with not like a full long form interview, but just a short interview where you might have like 2 pages of sit down with Neil Adams where he talks about this project or that project or some of his inspiration. Then you get to see some of the pages that he's talking about. And so when we did Rocket, we kind of incorporated all these things that we liked from all these different magazines and put it together. And what we came up with was you basically have a spine, and that spine is 5 creators, and there's a loose connection, a loose thread, if you will, that connects all of those creators in their story about how they came to indie comics. And then what we try to do is frame other creators, quote unquote, smaller creators, graphic novel previews, short stories, and everything else around that general theme. And we've had a great response. It's one of those things where we are completely overwhelmed at times because of how much quality is out there. And it's just, no matter where you turn, sometimes you're running into another great concept or another awesome artist. And here we've been blessed. We've got a great interview and some previews from Camel Moon, the Barton brothers. We've got a bunch of their stuff in here, along with a sit down with them that we're going to kind of explore some stuff that maybe people haven't thought or heard from the Barton brothers before. We've got previews of a couple graphic novels. We've got some great fan art. And that's the other thing. I mean, the fan art section could easily be the whole magazine. There's so many astounding artists out there. But I think some of the things that I'm most excited about here are the tutorials. And we've got Michael Ogden and Dean James from The Embrace, and they're both doing a tutorial. Michael's doing one on writing and how to avoid hitting melodrama with writing, and Dean's doing one on how to create a dynamic panel. And this isn't just for artists. This is for people. I mean, if we're all honest here, there's a large segment of Comicsgate and indie comics that came through other avenues to this scene, and they might not have a good background in comics or really understand how does a comic book work as far as the structure and the art goes, or even the writing. And this way they can get an idea of how does the writer approach something, how does the artist approach something, and gain a little bit more appreciation for that book that they love, whether it's one that's featured within Rocket or whether it's one that they've already got.
That's awesome. Just hearing you talk about it, I can tell that this is a labor of love. I'm going to tell you a little story about Wizard Magazine. When I broke into the industry in 2006, I got contacted by Wizard Magazine. They wanted to bring me to New York to have lunch with me. And I couldn't believe it because, like I said before, I grew up reading Wizard. All my heroes were in Wizard. I went to this lunch and they told me, how I was the type of creator that they wanted to cover in Wizard Magazine, that they were keeping an eye on me. And they laid out all these things they wanted to do for me. They wanted me to write a guest column. They wanted to cover my book. I was like, wow, this is fantastic. And I go home. I'm on cloud 9. A month goes by, don't hear from him. 2 months go by, I don't hear from him. So finally I reach out to my contact and said, hey, when's all this stuff going to start happening? And they said, oh, did you send in your advertising check yet? I was like, what?
Yeah, well, yeah. The predatory practices of Gareb Shamus would be a whole nother show. And that would be a fun show to have. Yeah. We don't have any paid advertising in Rocket, by the way, there is a bit of a divide, and Aldous did touch on a lot of things, but he didn't touch on Roy fucking Thomas. Excuse my language, but the alter ego and that genre of that's a tremendous towering creator in and of himself, Roy Thomas. But later on, he put his efforts into putting out some books that weren't particularly visually arresting, and I'm coming to the realization that people just don't want to read anymore. They just want to look at pictures. But alter ego, for example, well, I mean, I'm trying to be positive here, but Roy Thomas's alter ego of just one of many published under that imprint, they would have interviews with artists and not only talking about their current work, but I was pretty fascinated to they would do a little bit of research and come at them with questions that I'd never heard asked about their previous work, and what influenced that. And I don't know, man. I mean, I might be the only one left on the planet that wants to read that. But yeah, I just want to add Roy Thomas to the mix of there's a lot of inspirations for the magazine. It's an amalgamation of all the things that I love about magazines and I love about comics. And it's definitely a labor of love because it's by no means profitable. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
But and Steve's correct. I mean, if you we can go esoteric, and I can also talk about, the comic book buyer's guide played a huge influence in me wanting to do something like this. I still go out and collect those. Just the articles are awesome. There was some phenomenal research that was done and put into those, especially when you're going back to like the tie-ins with the Golden Age and stuff, or even Comics Journal. Those had some fantastic, production articles where they were actually getting into how does the printer work and how do the dots work? What are the dots? And it's little things like that just it interested you the more you got into comics.
Yeah. Why is it CMYK? Why is it RGB? What the hell's going on?
And while we're not covering a lot of that technical stuff, that did play a part in this. And that has come up at times of like, man, does somebody want me to write a 2-page article on how a digital printer works or how an offset printer works? Because I know there's been debate on that. I've seen it firsthand myself and been subject to it. So, if that's the kind of thing that maybe down the road would be interesting, but right now we're trying to do something that's more creator focused.
Well, I want to showcase the creators. I think a lot of people could use a 2 to 200 page tutorial on how cuts and bleeds and trims work at the printers. Just extend your artwork a little bit, fellas, and move that lettering on in. It's not, but you could do 2 or 20 pages on that real easy. But I think it's more important to showcase, again, just doing a little editorial mop up here. Dean James, amazing artist, and can explain what he's doing with panel composition. And as a words guy, I was more knocked out by the accompanying text that he sent along with the artwork for his tutorial. I'm definitely stoked on the writing tutorial because having characters fall into all too common tropes is, I think we have to There's a reason why Joseph Campbell's story works. There's a reason why most stories work. And I don't think it's a great idea to reinvent tropes as if you would reinvent the wheel. But at the same time, keeping drama from becoming melodrama, that's very interesting. But we do also have, this is the editorial house cleaning, Rob Arnold, who has so far provided me 9 of his top 10 tips for crowdfunding. I have 9. I've told Rob that that's not a properly alliterative title. So I'm waiting on that 10th one. But again, Rob Arnold's got a great, far more than I can fit into the pages of a magazine, which is,
right.
But if the magazine can draw some attention to, if for some reason you haven't read all the research that Rob has done on things that do work in crowdfunding, things that don't work in crowdfunding, you can find it here and go there. And
I want
I don't
to
know.
thank.
I'm not sure where I was going with that, other than I want to spotlight the creators. At the same time, I really want to hold forth for hours on end in print about, damn it, they're going to trim 1/8 of an inch off this page. Move the letters down. I do digress.
I want to thank Muttman, Backer 247 for Loose Threads. Thanks, Muddy.
Right on.
He says it's all downhill from the 90s. Best decade.
Dude, I'm just trying to ease the rapid descent. That's all I'm trying to do, my man. It's just trying to slow the roll.
All right, let's dive into Rocket Mission 2. So this cover right here, beautiful cover. Who did this beautiful piece of artwork?
E.J. Morges was kind enough to, encourage me to. He got his first one and said, "You got to do another one." And I was like, "Only if you do the cover." So I kind of had him over the barrel if he really cared. And E.J. Morges. And then Carlos Marino, who's another guy that I think should, Carlos Marino D on your twatters, is phenomenally talented. He's really good with line work as well, but not enough people know who he is. And he did the colors, and I love it. The first cover was unfortunately confrontational on the very show on which it was launched, and that was something I hadn't anticipated. But moving forward, we'll go with something a little more dynamic, and EJ delivered, and then some.
Well, I like it. It seems like it's the evolution. So the first Rocket 1 had the cover of the crew on the ground, and now you have the rockets actually blasting off into space. So
I'm going to go with that. That's much better. I'm going to go with that. I'll just write that down.
It's only natural. It's the evolution of the book.
That's perfect, and I need notes on that.
So there's but when you're talking about stuff like that, that also does kind of fit into the theme that I mentioned earlier. And that's, when people talk about, well, what, you got your 5 mastheads on this, and it's yourself and Samedi and Fraga and Tucci. How does all that tie in? And how does Andy Smith work into that? He's been a mainstream guy. Well, everybody has a story. And it's how did you launch yourself, right? How did that rocket take you into indie comics? Because where indie comics is, it's freedom, right? It's that you're not constrained by the corporate world. You own your own IP. You're your own business. And there's aspects of that thread. How did everybody get here? And Billy Tucci's story is very different than Andy Smith's story, and Andy Smith's story is very different than your own story. And that's there's the thread of similarity there, though, and that's where the launch comes in. That's where a lot of the illusion comes in that we're playing with. We'd like to think that we're, being kind of smart with how we're doing this, but, maybe not.
Not, as it turns out.
When Steve asked if you could have one of my characters on the cover, I was honored. I was surprised. Steve wanted Sea Dog at first because he loves the fact that I work with my son. Which now saying that out loud, I feel bad that I didn't go with Sea Dog, but I had to go with U.S. Assassin because Mike McMahon has been with me the longest, and U.S. Assassin is sort of like the figurehead of Haunted Pizza. So I had to put him in there.
Right. Well, McMahon's great. Well, and here in the chat, we've got Sean Davis, who's doing the Pillowman and Blanket Boy with his boy.
Yeah.
So, and both my son and I are huge fans of both Sea Dog and
I'm a
Pillowman
sucker
and
for a
Blanket
father
Boy.
and son thing. Every
It's
time.
also, it's just something like, hey, you know, we can sit, Buddy and I can sit down and go, hey, look at this, man. And, you know, he put it together with his son. Now we're reading it. And it's just cool, man. He thinks it's neat. So I definitely add something to it. And there's, you know, there's that aspect too, is part of this is supposed to be fun. And somewhere along the lines, I think that got forgotten. And I know I forgot it for a while as a pure collector. Like, you know, you're supposed to read the book. And for a long time there, I was just buying them and they were just going in long boxes. And this is supposed to bring back the fun. And so when you're flipping through, if you get issue 1, if you have issue 1 and you flip through it, man, it's entertaining, it's fun, it's engaging. It makes you excited about this scene and those creators, and hopefully makes you want to go out and see what else they've got out there. And when you talk, I mean, our success story that we always praise that we don't take credit for is Keir Covington, right? Keir Covington was in the fan art section of 1. Now he's working for Pete Samedi doing King Cryptid. We're not responsible for that, but it's awesome to see, man. That's exciting. It's engaging. You love to see that success going forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. Keir did fan art for Viking Wolf for me back.
That's how it came to my
ago.
attention. And yeah, I got to really be real clear that he'd taken no credit for that. It's Keir's talent, and Keir did his own thing. But yeah, that's where I saw his stuff. He was doing a lot of great fan art, and I was like, this guy's really talented. So, you know, it's been a minute, but I was like, can I feature this piece? It was it was Malin's piece. It was the godlike thing.
Godlike.
And you know, I'm like, this is fantastic. I've got a John interview in here. Let's make this happen. And he was all about it. And I couldn't be more stoked to see him doing King Cryptid, which, you know, leads to kind of an opportunity to talk to Peter. And, you know, also, yeah, we'll have a bit of an interview with Keir this time around, with a bit of a preview of his work on King Cryptid, which is, you know, that's the kind of thing I want to do. You want to hear a story about the cover, though, Mark?
Yeah,
about
definitely.
USA Assassin. Scroll back up.
Sure.
Just in case anybody else is considering doing this, my counsel would be steady plumbing, perhaps welding. Those things are never going to go out of style. So I'm USA Assassin. I'm like, yeah, totally. That'll work. That will work. And talking it over with EJ and then subsequently Carlos. Okay, yeah, this, you know, EJ was like, well, what are they actually doing? I'm like, it's going to be these people. It's going to be Penobra. It's going to be She. It's going to be, shout out to Andy Smith for letting me use boobs. You know, I was like, you know, it's kind of a sausage fest. We need a little, but anyway, you know, King Cryptid and Fragga. What character do you want? He gives me 3, and EJ picks out the most dynamic one, and on we go. And it's never going to be seen, but and it's my bad in some ways. But the point of the story is the colors were all working out great, but I researched it pretty thoroughly. EJ researched it pretty thoroughly, and we had no reference images where Dan's character didn't have a yellow chest. In the original Black Flag, you know, back when, so there was the split, and Dan's like, no, I've changed his character. The design's a little different. Here's some references, but every image every preview image Dan has up of you know, it's always the Spider-Man poses, and you can't even see the chest. We can move on now, but there was a splash of yellow down at the bottom of the page that I really liked it. And then Dan was like, well, but now his chest is blue. And I'm like, but USA Assassin's silver and blue. Your guy's supposed to be silver blue with a big splash of yellow right up front. Moving on.
So how has the the professionals that you've reached out to, how have they been? Have they been excited to be part of it? I know I was, but like a big name like Billy Tucci.
It's amazing and astounding to me that in one walk of life we don't need to go into, but I met a lot of people in the motorcycle industry and wound up with a pretty nice publishing career out of that. In this genre, Andy Smith is amazing. Art T. Bear is completely amazing. I mean, I got to sit one-on-one and talk to Art T. Bear, whose work I've been consuming, I don't want to say forever because we're roughly contemporaries, sadly enough, for both of us. But everybody's been incredibly generous with their time. And it's pretty cool to sit down with Billy Tucci and the conversation veers off to motorcycles. Sit down with Art T. Bear and, we're talking about playing in bar bands, and a lot of that winds up on the cutting room floor for the magazine, obviously, but it's all pursuant to having a conversation that goes where it goes. And yeah, I mean, let me be a bit more succinct. It is a pleasure and a privilege to be able to sit and talk with some of these luminaries of not only independent comics, but comics at large. For sure.
Brent, if I'm going to add to that too, I mean, what we're really looking for with these interviews too is they're not cookie cutters. We're not just trying to hit the same points that everybody's heard or the same stories. We want to do that fluid conversation where we can hit a point where we're really just riffing off of something and then kind of take a snapshot of that. And you get a sense of both who's the actual person, because everybody wears quote unquote the mask, right? I mean, you've got your professional facade. Who's the real person? And when you talk to a guy for a couple hours, eventually that comes out. And that's what we're looking to put in these interviews. So you've got guys like Cecil that were in the first one, or Malin that's in the first one, where you read those and man, there's some stories in there that you've never heard. If you've watched every John Malin episode on YouTube, you're going to learn something when you read that interview. If you've watched every Cecil episode, you're going to learn something new when you read that interview. And the same thing's true for the 5 that we have here, yourself included.
Yeah, I was going to ask, has any of the interviews surprised you and they weren't they weren't what you expected them to be?
Well, first of all, I certainly wasn't surprised when about half of Malin's interview was him yelling about things that pissed him off. So that was no surprise at all. Beyond that, you go into it. I've kind of been doing this for a long time. Some might say too long of a time. And if you're preparing for a long form interview, you've got a framework. You've got some areas that you don't think have been delved into. You've got some areas that you think could use a little further illumination, perhaps. Maybe you just have some questions you're like, I've always wondered. But you go into it with that. And, the most rewarding thing about, allow me to digress, as I always do. The most rewarding thing is to be able to sit down with these guys for 3 hours. The least rewarding thing is to have to transcribe the interview and figure out what goes in and what goes out, and B, to leave an awful lot of it on the cutting room floor. But you got to allow the interview to go where it goes, back on point. You got an idea of what you want to ask a guy. You got an idea of where he's coming from, but there's a whole lot of nuances that come out in a long form conversation. And I would like to think artfully edited can kind of reveal both the man and the process of their creation. And
so these are actually sit down interviews. You talk to them live?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's honest. Like, coming from my background in indie comics and a little mainstream.
I mean, you can do an email. Yeah. You can do an email interview and cut and paste it. And that's a lot less work.
No,
but you're not going to uncover that little hidden nugget that you didn't even know.
Definitely makes it more personal.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. The one thing I really loved talking about this, you guys saying, like, it's meant to be fun. When this whole Comicsgate movement started, I mean, I that's what I thought people wanted, like fun comics. And whenever I make a comic, I want it to be fun. So I love this. I'm eating this up. This is like right in my wheelhouse. So
Nice.
I'm excited for this, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're excited to have you in it, to be sure. You know, and like Aldous says, without, you know, being totally repetitive, you've worked really hard to achieve what you've achieved. You've done a lot of different things in comics. You know, you've held an executive role and a creative role with the Coney Company, and you know, you've worked for DC, and you've also literally the scene that we're in is, I don't know, I mean, it seems longer, but it's about 5 years old. But you've been doing this twice that long, as far as actually going independent, marketing your own books, doing that thing, taking a step back from the Coney Waves thing to from the more executive. I mean, that's got to be a tough decision, and that's something that people can pick up Rocket to read more about. But
Yeah,
but to go from being in a position where it is your passion to see other people published, but at the same time weigh that against your own passion for publishing your own work. You know, these are, I don't know. Yeah.
No, I mean, we could talk about it more in the interview, but yeah, I was told that the company I worked for, they saw me more as an executive than a creator, and I honestly took that as a as a little bit of an insult.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I mean, similarly, I broke into the magazine business as a guy that could write complete sentences and also ride a dirt bike convincingly. That little combination got me in. As it turns out, you know, I'm a classically trained journalist. I went to school. I was editor of the college newspaper, for F's sakes. So, but that little combination of things put me in there, you know, and then eventually it became, I didn't know how to design a magazine when I got in the magazine business. And I don't know, it's a bit of a dichotomy. You know, I'm at the point now where I like designing the book more than I like creating the content. That comes and goes, though. Sometimes I want to be a writer. I mean, that's, you know, essentially I ride motorcycles and I type, you know, at the beginning and the end of the day. I'm a writer and I'm a writer. But yeah, I've been in that position where they're like, well, you're the managing editor. You need to manage. And I'm like, I don't know if that's, I don't know. But at the same time, yeah, putting all the pieces together is its own reward, to be sure.
Let's go over these tiers. Your featured tier is the full payload. What comes with this? It looks like a lot.
Well, first of all credit to Aldous, because the full payload thing, I'm always the guy looking for a theme, rocket, mission control, all that stuff. But he came up with full payload out of just thin air. So full credit to Aldous. That is the new book, Rocket Mission 1, the existing book. It's a t-shirt. It's a hat to keep your head warm, and I need a new one. And it's a koozie to keep your beverage cold.
Nice.
Yeah.
This is the tier I went for. I had to have everything. So
well, that's we'll talk. I don't know why you need two of the first one, but thank you.
Hey.
You didn't technically need. Yeah, but yeah, let's just roll with it. we'll just roll with it.
The mission number 2, just the magazine, $25. The mission 2 magazine and the koozie, $35. And you're looking to estimated shipping for all of these. This is February 2023, which isn't that far away. It's only 3 months away, guys.
No,
that's why the campaign only has 8 days left on it, or 7 days left on it currently, is we're not extending. We're only going to the 30, and then we're going in demand because we need to get the ball rolling as soon as possible so that we can hit that deadline. So, yeah, so that's why we're asking, if you're interested in it, if it sounds like something cool, please share the link, back the book. We could use the support. We want to see a great response to this one because this is something that both Steve and I are very passionate about for this indie Comicsgate scene, and we certainly want to do more. We'd love it to be a biannual, or man, it'd be awesome to get this out as a quarterly. But in order to do that, we need to see the response. And if the response isn't there, it doesn't mean it's going to die. It just means we'll take a step back and figure out another way to package it, and then reapproach from a different angle. Because I think the scene really needs something like this in some fashion, and maybe it'll just take a few. I think we're close. I think we're really close to it with this. But the response so far is just kind of suggesting that maybe we need to tweak the formula a little bit.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel like something like this is needed for the community. But yeah, I don't know. Like for me, this is right up my alley, so I'm like all in on this.
I thought there'd be more of us, Mark.
Yeah.
I thought there'd be more of us, frankly. And all the, I mean, I'm always open to a bit of tweaking, to be sure, but I mean, ultimately, it is one of those deals when I want to pick out 4 or 5 name brand guys that have made their bones and really succeeded, maybe in the industry, maybe solely as an independent, maybe as like yourself or Andy, somebody that's succeeded in both arenas. But also take a bit of that spotlight that guys like you can bring to it and diffuse it just a touch and spray it over here on Crowfire Studios and spray it over here on JP Plack and the things that they're doing. And, it used to be that, I mean, you've been there for the duration. There was a point when you almost kind of like knew everything that was going on. And now there's a lot going on. And it's very, very difficult, even with an army of artists, which me and Aldous do have at our disposal, it's difficult to stay abreast of everything that's out there. And, if I can show off a guy like Keir Covington in the first issue and then people kind of know what his name is and then they check out an alternative comic book, I'm not suggesting I have this influence, but I do aspire to be in a position where I can be like, you maybe haven't seen this. And then maybe somebody out there sees it and then they seek out that product. And I'd like to do it.
Octagon
use a little
Comics,
backing.
Says, "Hello, my wife wants to back it. She hears the fan art section is cool."
Well, it's full of really, really talented guys that I'm quite sure will go on to bigger and better things, whether I publish them or not. But it'd be pretty cool if I could put their work into print for the first time, because I definitely remember what it was like the first time I saw my work in print.
Yeah, no,
cool.
Just going back to my executive days, so many people that I was able to give them their first shot. Just seeing how much that meant to them. It's very rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it.
So the magazine and the beanie, $45. Beanie's very big in our community, Steve.
I thought I'd give it a shot. I got to pimp the merch, man. I don't have a lot of original art to sell. I got to pimp the merch.
The magazine, the shirt, and the extras, $55. And then the Orbit, which is the magazine, beanie, shirt, and koozie, $90. So lots of great tiers. I say go for the featured tier. That's what I went with. But you guys, you hinted at it a little earlier that ideally you like to make this a biannual book.
I don't see it as I never saw it. I want to say that I still see that there's a market for it.
Yeah, no, I think there is.
I never saw it as one of those hit a home run, do it once a year type of things. I always saw it as something that if it could sustain itself. I mean, for years, I put out monthly magazines, and for a few rather wretched years, I put out daily newspapers.
Yeah.
I can hit deadlines. I can put content on the page. I can get a file to the printer, and I can say, press the button. more importantly, there is enough talent. There's enough projects. Quarterly is what I would aspire to. And I think there's so many people out there. I mean, Aldous touched on it a bit before, and I'm just going to say it. I don't care if it sounds negative or not. The response from people wanting to be in it sort of outweighs the response from people wanting to own it. And, if I get the equation somewhat in whack, I'd like to do it quarterly. That's what I'd like to do. And again, I don't see it as a thing it's not a 6-figure book. If it could be a 5-figure book 4 times a year, we could probably make that happen. But as a 4-figure book, the first one was a whole lot of me waving my hands around in the air and saying it's kind of like this, it's kind of like that. The first one does exist, people.
Yep.
It's actually in demand as we speak, and I appreciate the dozen or so people that have backed it recently. And you could get your hands on it and check it out and see if you want to invest in the future of the project. And that'd be cool.
Or just go all in and get that full payload.
Or just do that.
Yeah, this is I feel like this work is a celebration of everything we've done over the last 5 years, captured in a time capsule. Like you're recording like this movement and all the successes that not only big time creators have had, but smaller creators are now going on to bigger things.
Well, right. I hope so. I'll pass that to Aldous, but I hope so. We're trying to.
Well, when you talk like in this issue, we've got the Barton brothers, like I mentioned earlier. Well, I just received my copy of Kozor, right? And they've already got 3 or 4 other projects in the works. So you're talking, by now, when we're talking probably 8 months from now, and we're talking issue 3, mission 3, they're going to be out. They're going to be on fire, right? They're going to be just killing it because people are going to get Kozor. They're going to love it. The book looks fantastic. And then they're going to be dropping their next campaigns. Same thing with Camel Moon. When we first were talking with Camel Moon, he was in fulfillment for Hail Salad. Now he's launched Boots and Heels. He's got a really good response for that. By the time issue 3 comes around, he's going to be on another campaign. So it's that celebration of success, but you get to see where they came from. And it's something that, like I said, Steve and I sat down a long time ago and we're like, man, I can write a little bit, but I don't have a whole lot of time. And Steve was like, yeah, I've got some ideas, but I just don't have the time either. Well, putting something together like this, it's fairly easy because it's just articles. So it's not sitting down and writing a 30 or 40 page script. It's just, okay, we can hammer out this article, or we can get this guy, hey, could we get this from you? And then we can edit it and clean it up. So this is something that's not easily, we can handle this, and we can handle a couple of these a year, no problem. But we'd love to, because it's all about passion. It's a celebration of everything we love about indie comics in this space. It's the celebration. It's the spirit of Comicsgate, what Comicsgate started off as 5 years ago. And it's everything about that is in the context of this 120 page plus perfect bound high gloss magazine that's meant to be an exclamation point on it that, hey, we made it, man. We're here. We've got a magazine that's better than anything that the mainstream has.
So Steve mentioned his journalist background. Aldous, where do you fit into this? Do you have?
I don't. I've got a Bachelor of Science. I'm in the tech field, but I have a English background as well.
All right. So you're so passionate and well spoken. So.
So, I come from it from I'm a lifelong 3rd generation comic fan.
Yeah.
I've always appreciated the medium. I've always been very interested in the history, all the artists. I just got a chance to speak to Michael Golden recently for a little bit.
Nice.
And it's just, it's little moments like that I appreciate. And just the things like this, the stories that you get and being able to share those. And something like this gives the opportunity to put those down in print where they'll never die. And if it's, that's something else as well. What does a magazine have a place in 2022? Yeah, absolutely. Print will always have a place, because as long as it's in print, it will never die. And that's what's important, because I collect pulp magazines from the 30s and golden age comic books, and they're still around. But the radio programs from that era that I love just as much, a lot of those are gone forever because nobody recorded it on physical media.
Yeah.
And so there's a lesson there that it's got to be in print. We've got to have it. And that's why something like this is important. And yeah, we'll offer digital with each successive issue. So if you want the digital for issue 1, you can get that right now. And if you want the digital for issue 2, you can get that with issue 3. So we're doing it, but it's phased out in time because the print is our primary focus. We're old school guys, and we much prefer the smell of that first time you open a book.
Well, your enthusiasm for the project just like shows just how much this means to you, to the both of you. So I wish you guys all the success in the world. You're so close right now to your funding goal of $5,000. You're at $4,719. 7 days left. I would encourage everyone in the chat to share the link, and please consider backing. This is a great project, and really just a perfect time capsule of the movement we're living in right now.
Really appreciate it, Mark, and thank you again so much for being involved. I mean, if there's one thing that Steve and I have been completely humbled by, in addition to the enthusiasm and the backers that have backed, it's the response from all the creators that we asked to be involved. And it's humbling, and it's fantastic. And thank you again so much.
No, it's my pleasure. So we're getting close to the point where we're going to wrap this up. Is there anything else you'd like to mention about the project?
Buy my book. No, no. Yeah, I just echo Aldous. I really appreciate you having this on. I feel like I catch your show quite often, and although I'm not a big participant in the chats, you've got comic book fans. There are a lot of people that watch whatever stream for whatever reason, but I appreciate you putting us in front of your audience, which I feel like is some true comic book fans. And if you liked Wizard, you'll like this even better. And if you hated Wizard, I'm not a crook like Durham Shamus.
No, and I'll just say this: it's whether it's Rocket or whether it's Loose Threads or whether it's any great book out there that you see in this indie space. I understand the economy's what it is right now. Inflation is what it is right now. Everybody's wallet is a little bit lighter than it was 2 years ago. And if you can't back it, please share the link, because everybody collects friends that have the similar interests. And just because you might not have the time, the wherewithal, or the cash, or the desire to back it doesn't mean somebody doesn't. So if you share that link, that's just as good half the time as backing the book. So don't hesitate. Share it out on your social media, whether it's Rocket, whether it's Loose Threads, whether it's any indie space book that you're interested in. We don't have the marketing budget that the bigs do. You're our marketing budget. So if you see it, you love it, share it, please.
General Piggy says, never read Wizard, but I'm reading this. That's what you love to
Hell
hear.
yeah.
Thank you.
So Steve and Aldous, Steve, where can people find you at?
I'm the real Steve Dye. In addition to putting out the occasional magazine, if you need a little editing work, if you need pre-press for your own comic, my rates are surprisingly affordable. And it's pretty much crawl up in my DMs. We'll work something out.
Yeah, Steve comes highly recommended. I had him put together the Haunted Pizza PDF for me. So thank you.
That was a lot of fun. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was a little different from than what I usually do, but that's what made it fun. So I appreciate that opportunity.
Yeah, no problem. Aldous, where can people find you at?
Well, I am Aldous of the long moniker. It's Aldous on the Farm, at Aldous on the Farm, all one word, on Twitter. And if you are so inclined to check out my YouTube channel, it is Aldous on the Farm, just off Orwell Lane.
Yeah, do that. If you like old time radio shows with exceptionally insightful introductions, check that out.
I try. The praise is more than the actual introduction, but I
want some playlists so that my bedtime listening is sorted.
There is a playlist. I've sent it to you twice.
Hey, guys, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Coney Waves. Make sure you subscribe to Primetime Poulton. Hit the notifications. Please check out Loose Threads in demand, but not for much longer. And I'll be back Wednesday for CG Revolution with Chris Graves and Mike McMahon. I want to thank Amanda B for sharing the links in the chat. Thanks, guys. We'll see you Wednesday. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Amanda.